I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Thanks so much for spending some time with us. Hide and go leak. That's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, we all love playing hide and go seek, at least I did as kids, especially as the sun was setting on a beautiful summer day. Well, it's wintertime and the adults in charge in the Senate are still playing games. This one's called hide and go leak, as in hide the text of the so-called Senate border deal while leaking out bits and pieces in what's a transparent attempt to satisfy critics. Now, it's a classic Senate theater of the absurd move with its own cast of characters, including the man cast by Mitch McConnell to be lead actor. That's Oklahoma Senator Jim Langford. He's trying mightily to convince you that Biden will really enforce new laws under a new bill, even though he doesn't use the authority that he already has. Now, under the leaked out language, Biden would not be compelled to act to close the border unless a threshold number of about 5,000 migrants had been logged in one day, which, by the way, has happened many times during the past month.
This is not about letting 5,000 people in a day. This is the most misunderstood section of this proposal. And let me tell you briefly what it is. In the last 4 months, we've had 7 days. In 4 months, we've had 7 days that we had less than 5,000 people. This is set up for if you have a rush of people coming at the border closes down, no one gets in.
Now, his arguments make no sense because in the first place, as even the Washington Post on this subject made clear, even the 5,000 migrant cap isn't a real cap. Because even if the border were shut down, people could apply for asylum at ports of entry. So the border would never be shut down, no matter how high the number gets. And as for the idea that we can trust Biden and Mayorkas to implement pro-enforcement changes in asylum laws, there is zero reason for us to believe that either of them would want this nonsense stopped. Unless, well, of course, ensuring that everyone meets the new standard if there was a new standard put in place. After all, 90% of all migrants right now do not qualify for asylum status. They just mouth the credible fear language in the regulation. Yeah, they've been tutored. Plus, Biden would still be allowed to parole migrants into the country in huge numbers. Even the Washington Post conceded this, saying some Republicans' goal to dramatically curtail Biden's use of his own humanitarian parole powers for certain categories of migrants is not in the final deal. Okay, think about this. Biden's parole power will be unchanged, and he'll get his $60 billion for Ukraine. Leave it to the Senate Republicans to call that a good deal. Conservatives essentially get nothing they want, and liberals get everything they want. Oh, but wait. Because Senator Langford says that the bill would allocate more money for immigration judges and other personnel. You know what I say to that? So what? More staff just gives Biden the chance to hire a bunch of woke people who will do everything possible to help bring more migrants into the country, because that's how this works. The notion that Biden or Langford are going to use that money to hire really tough border people like Tom Homan in favor of enforcement, that's absurd.
It is interesting. Republicans 4 months ago would not give funding for Ukraine, for Israel, and for our southern border because we demanded changes in policy. So we actually locked arms together and said, we're not going to give you money for this. We want a change in law. And now it's interesting, a few months later, when we're finally getting to the end, they're like, oh, just kidding. I actually don't want a change in law because it's a presidential election year.
Well, that's categorically false. We're against this deal because it's a bad deal. It's so bad that his team refuses to release the text. And oh yes, they have the text. And they won't release it until the last possible minute. We know it's going to be rife with ambiguous language and countless exceptions to any supposedly tough border provisions. So this bill, whatever its text, is unnecessary and indefensible. To prove his bona fides on the border, Biden could shut down the border right now. He could declare a national border emergency, citing fentanyl overdoses, overcrowded cities, health concerns, overcrowded schools. But he doesn't do this, and Langford and company won't demand it. Why? Well, John Kirby got tripped up today on this question.
Are there not steps that he could use under executive authority to some measures to kind of seal some of the border efforts?
He has said he's willing to use executive measures, and you know, if he gets the bill passed, if he gets border funding, and it includes those authorities, he'll use those authorities.
Hey, John, next time just say, can I buy a vowel, please? Now back to Langford. Now, he's a senator from one of our most conservative states. So has he convened a town hall in Oklahoma on this border bill? Really go through it? Of course not. But why not release the language, then try to go sell it to the people who will actually have to live with the consequences? He won't do a town hall because he knows how badly it would go. On Saturday, the Oklahoma GOP voted to formally censure Langford, accusing him of playing fast and loose with Democrats on our border policy. Not only disenfranchises legal immigrants seeking citizenship, but it also puts the safety and security of Americans in great danger. It goes on, by the way, to call on him to cease and desist, jeopardizing the security and liberty of Americans. The Angle could not agree more. Stop the hiding, stop the leaking, and focus on uniting Republicans and independents, and maybe disaffected Democrats, to win in November and finally do what the people have wanted for 20 years, to have a real border and limited immigration. And that's the Angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.